What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another album review for you guys. And today, I know I'm a day late to doing a review. That's because yesterday I was busy with rearranging stuff in here, as well as putting together the new CD shelf that you can see behind me. And like I said, rearranging stuff. I got my drums over here now. But I am now here today to talk about an album that I saw that was coming out this weekend that I wanted to check out. It's actually my first time listening to a full album from this band. I am here, of course, to talk about the... let me go back and find it again. The fifth studio album from Cleveland Blackened speed metal project Midnight, and their album Let There Be Witchery. So yeah, Midnight, I've heard so much about this band over the years. I've heard a couple of their songs, whether it was in like YouTube compilations or from Daniel DK playing some of the riffs off of his Twitch stream. So when I saw that Midnight had a new album coming out, I was like, ooh, I might want to check this out. Plus, an Ohio band. Gotta love my Ohio bands, right? So yeah, Midnight, of course, I know about their story. They formed, or it's a project by Athanar, or Jameson Walters, back in the early 2000s, and throughout the entire decade of the 2000s, just demos and splits and compilations and stuff, and then 2011, I believe, the debut album came out, their first studio album, and they're currently on Metal Blade Records, which so far this year for Metal Blade has been pretty damn good, so let's hear how this album sounds. So we kick things off with Telepathic Nightmare, this cool, like, dark, sinister melodic guitar line, gets us started on a more spooky note, before it unleashes into the blackened speed metal that Midnight is known for. Some of the riffs that I'm hearing on here definitely remind me so much of bands like Venom and Motorhead, and the D beats on this track are very well executed as well. Then again, it's Athanar doing pretty much everything: vocals, guitar, bass, drums, all that stuff. And Telepathic Nightmare, I thought, was a really catchy, fun way to get this album up off the ground. Frothing Foulness, more awesome Motorhead-inspired riffs right out of the gate. The vocals change here on this track because, like, on the opening track, Telepathic Nightmare, he kind of had a bit of like almost like a torturous, almost punky vibe to his voice. Here, his voice kind of harkens back a little bit to Tom G. Warrior from Celtic Frost. Even does a ooh in the song, which I thought was a nice, cool little homage to Tom Warrior. While the Motorhead vibe is strong here on this track, I get a little hint of Exciter a little bit as well. This track was awesome, but my big complaint about it is, like, right where it ends, it ended abruptly. I don't know if there was something that went wrong with the mixing or the mastering of it to where something had to be cut completely off and it just ended abruptly. I don't know what the deal was with that, but aside from that, this song was badass. It just ended abruptly. In Sinful Secrecy, a little bit more melody to the riffs that we get right here at the beginning, and this track kind of slows down to almost like an Iron Maiden inspired gallop, and even the riffs kind of carry a little bit of an Iron Maiden vibe with the melodic approach, but still maintaining a little bit of that Motorhead sensibility. And the lead work here gets into a little bit of shred, which is really, really nice. Towards the end with the final chorus, some cool melody being played in the background while the riff is going to lead us to the end of the song. Nocturnal Molestation, badass riff right off the bat as it slows down even further to more classic metal territory, kind of like Judas Priest. Like, this song and a few other songs later in the album kind of has more nods to Judas Priest, I hear. Like, these riffs on this track, for example, very Priest-inspired. Right away after chorus number 1, a cool quick-fire lead, and then in the second half of the song we get another sweet lead that kind of has a little bit of that Judas Priest influence still intact. And while it has that Priest vibe, this is a very sleazy song, and it was pretty fucking cool. Then again, Midnight's always been able to balance evilness and sleaziness into their music, because after all, evil and sexual-based lyrics are always pretty cool for me when it comes to Blackened speed metal. So there you have it on that. And then we end the first half with more Torment, which was actually the slowest song of the album because it kind of gets into like an Alice in Chains or even a Celtic Frost inspired groove. Like the riffs and the beats definitely remind me so much of those two bands. And the lead here kind of kept that Alice in Chains vibe, but still bringing in that Motorhead influence. And by the way, I got a fever, and the only prescription is more cowbell! We get some cowbell on this track, which was a nice little nod right there. Another lead towards the end to kind of keep the vibes that this track had going for it. And this was actually the longest song of the album, well, one of two songs that was at about 4 minutes long. And it was one of my favorites off the album, bar none. Then to the second half we go with Let There Be Sodomy. Right back into the speed from the first track. It kind of almost felt like the first half, things were slowing down gradually towards more Torment. Now here in the second half, we get right back to the fast stuff. Riffs on here, definitely carrying more of that Venom inspiration. And in the middle of the song, we get a longer and more memorable lead section to bring on the melody. And even the chorus on this song was quite catchy as well. Devil Virgin, starting off with this like cool tremolo riff while the second guitars are kind of providing dark melodies in the background. And while that tremolo riff continues, the second guitar gets into some different riffs. And the bass line on this track really stands out above pretty much all the other songs as far as the bass. And this track, once again, has more groove to it. And the lead section here, again, more of that Motorhead influence. Snake Obsession, which sounds like something phallic. But Insanity right off the bat before it settles into a D beat, and we get one of the best riffs of the album up to this point, and more of that Venom influence, but bringing in it almost also felt like something Exciter would have probably written on like their early albums. Another Motorhead-inspired lead, despite it being a quick one. It was really cool to hear, and this track, I think, packed more of a punch than most on this album, which I really, really enjoyed. Villainy, Wretched Villainy, back to that classic metal riffing, more of that Judas Priest influence, but bringing in a little bit of Accept influence as well. Great hooks in this track, which I really liked, and in the middle, another tasty lead section with those classic 80s metal vibes. Then again, a lot of this album felt like a classic 80s metal album to some degree. And then we end off the album with Sex Switchery, starting off with an Accept riff, kind of like an influence of an Accept riff, the inspiration of an Accept riff. But then the following riffs we get kind of gets into like Motorhead and even Discharge at times, and some of the parts on this song kind of also reminds me of TV Crimes by Black Sabbath. I don't know, maybe it's just because I've listened to that song and that album, Dehumanizer, so much. I don't know, I kind of got some hints of that song here. I don't know, maybe I was just listening to that song too much. But the lead here was probably the best lead of the album because it wasn't all about shred, it was more about bringing atmosphere, which was something different compared to the rest of the album, where the rest of the album was more about shred and so on. Here, this was more about providing an atmosphere, but maintaining melodies in the background of that atmosphere. And then towards the end, it slows down to almost doom metal territory. So then you get into the slowest part of the entire album, which is at the very end. So overall, like this album, there's a lot of classic inspiration going on here. Everything from Priest to Motorhead to Maiden to Venom to Exciter, Accept, all over the place as far as like an 80s metal inspiration going on here. And like I said, like the first half kind of, it's like starts off in fourth gear and then it slows down a little bit to kind of break apart that speed a little bit by slowing it down gradually with each passing track. And even in the second half, it kind of does a little bit of that, but it kind of has more speed in the second half than you would get on the first half. Of course, like, the lyrics, yeah, they're fairly simple, you know, evil, sex, all that stuff, but it works for this band. Or really for anything that involves blackened speed metal or blackened thrash where it has this vibe. It works every single time because it fits in line with that Venom worship that you hear from a lot of these bands. Really, the only complaint that I really found on this album was just frothing foulness, how it just ended abruptly, like right when it was about to reach a conclusion, it just cut off. So like I said, I'm curious to know what happened with that song. Like, did something go wrong with the mastering or the mixing or whatever, and they just had to cut that part off? Or it was intended to be like that for a more dramatic effect? I don't know, but it just really seemed jarring to me that it would just cut off just like that. If you guys listen to the song and you get to the end, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But overall, this was fun, catchy songs right here. Lots of hooks, like the melodic approach you get on certain tracks. Love all the tones you get here. Damn strong album, 9.5 out of 10. This is some really fantastic blackened speed metal. I can definitely hear where my buddy James McBain from Hellripper gets some of his inspiration from, for sure. After doing that interview with him and how he's a huge fan of Midnight, I now see why. This is some fantastic material right here. Really no complaints apart from that one little thing. So yeah, 9.5 out of 10 for Let There Be Witchery by Midnight. But that's just my opinion. What are your guys' thoughts on Let There Be Witchery by Midnight? Let me know in the comments below, and until next time, horns high, and I will see you soon.
Yeah, so music, I think it was just kind of hearing like my parents listen to like just whatever they were listening to around the house, and like flipping through the music channels on TV. I'm not sure if you had what it was like in the US and things, but in the UK we had like a few channels like Kerrang, Scuzz, things like that, which would play your kind of anything kind of mainstream at the time, if you could say so. Like you would get Slipknot, System of a Down,
yes,
and loads of like Sum 41, Linkin Park, and all that kind of stuff.